like.
Oh.
Good. Let's get him awake. I like that.
All right. This is the moment that I have been waiting for. This is the opening kickoff keynote with the family. I'm so grateful for St. Paul being here, Eric Leeds, and Susannah, and hopefully we'll have Jellybean Johnson very, very soon. I love that St. Paul has his Starfish Coffee Maple Syrup and Jam coffee mug going on.
I have a injured cup that I'm trying to talk to the owner about to see if I can get it replaced.
You can. I think I can make that happen for you.
You can? Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah,
she'll
send you. She got to send you a little tube of glue. That's their guarantee.
Tube of glue.
I'm trying to find a way to join the chat, but it's not letting me because it's saying connect to the comment section on YouTube.
I'll read them all to you.
Yeah, but you can. Hopefully, you can see them. Can you not
I can see them? But I don't know if I'll be able to actually interact, guys. But know that I'm seeing them.
Yeah,
awesome.
We can all see them.
Yep, great. So I just want to give a special shout out to Sandra Bradley for being the first in the chat. She's also a part of the What Did Prince Do This Week crew. We hang out every Saturday here on YouTube, reading actually Dwayne Tudall's book, and we're going week by week. So it's really great to see all of you here. But I want to be mindful of the time, and I think I hear the one
Big bro.
only Jellybean Johnson. We are.
How y'all doing?
It's so great to have you here.
What city are you in, Jellybean?
I'm in Minneapolis for now. I mean, Brooklyn Park for now. Yeah.
Okay. I thought we might have caught you traveling.
I'm tired. I'm not gonna lie about that, but yeah, I'm good.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Jellybean. We really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Of course, of course. So just really quickly, this weekend, this is day one of 3 days of celebration. We are celebrating 1985 with the family around the world in a day and Sheila E's Romance 1600. This is our kickoff event for today. And I want to start, if Susannah doesn't mind.
No, not at all.
I'm talking a little bit about the Around the World in a Day album cover, which you actually sat for. Can you talk to us about this process? And did you know what was going on? Like, did Prince talk to you about like what the cover is going to be like? Was this Doug Hender's idea? Like, can you talk to us about the Around the World Day?
It's an interesting story, but from what I remember, there was a mock-up of this album cover before Doug got involved, and Prince. I do remember him saying this is not working, but there were images on it that he did like. There was sort of an impressive sort of American sort of tragedy that he wanted to sort of put on that image, you know, the young baby with the American flag and sort of all different colors and all different kinds of, you know, lives that were being represented on the cover. And Doug got involved because Doug was his, you know, kind of an art director. He'd done some really interesting art for Prince. He's the original artist who designed behind his bed, the eyes behind his, you know, even in his home.
Yes.
So he loved what Doug was doing, and he could actually communicate really pretty well with Doug. And so Doug called me and invited me to the Bellagio Hotel where Doug was staying, and just sort of taking photographs of people that, as you see in this, he had me pose with the violin because he found out, I don't know why he knew that I had played violin when I was in grade school badly. But I did have a way of sort of like pretending as if I did know how to play. And I was also a dancer. So, and you know, long story short, we spent the day listening to Cocteau Twins and having a great day, and him telling me about what was going to come up. He was doing a storyboard of the album at the time, and I'd known what was to come because I'd seen the original version and I'd known about what was happening. And so this became the collaborative effort between Prince and Doug. And, as you can see, I posed for it, through a long process all day of sort of playing around and sitting in the hotel room and figuring out how we were going to do this. And that just came about. So that was really it. Everybody else was done separately as well. And it didn't take that long. Because Prince liked to work so quickly. So yeah, within a few months, the mock-up was done. And then there were tweaks here and there. And then you have Around the World in a Day. It was a really important record. My involvement in it goes way back before Prince even recorded Around the World in a Day, because my brother and my brother's best friend, Lisa Coleman's brother, wrote Around the World in a Day. And Wendy and Lisa and I had done all the background vocals on the original demo that they played for Prince. And he was like, I want the record. I want it. I want it. I want it. And of course, my brother and David were like, the young guys were like, sure, go ahead. Yeah, you got it. And then that turned into a whole thematic experience with the music. And it was all surrounded by Around the World in a Day. And so that's how that record came about.
And you're also, go ahead, Paul.
Those pictures of you, sis, are stunning.
Wow.
Well, I don't know.
It tripped me out because I knew that was Susannah.
Young and chubby cheeked and cute and lots of hair.
Beautiful. Look at that. That is beautiful.
I'm tripping.
Yeah. They were. Yeah, I was glad to do it.
And those are Polaroids, which aren't like the best like photo quality, but like you look stunning.
Polaroids back then, I just want to say for all the gals out there, Polaroids far exceed what selfies do, or what like people will take a quick shot of you on their phone and you're like, holy good Christ, get rid of that thing. But Polaroids seem to always sort of like, yeah, all right, I can live with that one.
Yes. So you actually sung background vocals on Raspberry Beret, right? And The Ladder.
Yes.
Can you talk about actually recording The Ladder? Because there were, I think it was you and Wendy, and I know Taja Seville. Like, did you all record that at the background vocals at the same time, or did you do them individually? Do you remember anything about recording that?
I want to say that was oh my gosh, there was so much going on because just gotten off the Purple Rain. Oh God, the Purple Rain tour, and we were at the warehouse, and we had been doing Prince. We had just been. There were so many records being done at the same time, including Taja Seville's solo record. So that particular The Ladder was done. I want to say with all of us behind the mic. Because I remember actually looking at Taja when I was singing, going, "Wow, okay, she's a new one in the group." I didn't know who she was until that particular period. I didn't even know that she was around.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, that's a singer." Yeah.
I have one more Around the World Day question, and I promise we'll get to the family. But this is actually for Eric, if you will indulge me. So there was an America music video shoot in Nice, and what it's one of my favorite videos that Prince has ever done. And you're on the stage alongside Eddie M, who's actually going to join us today at 2 p.m. So I was curious, like, do you have any stories from this actual shoot of America? And how did you work it out with Eddie M? Like, who is going to do what, for the song? Because I know you guys did like a couple of takes.
I just remember the rehearsal. Prince asked me if I had any horn lines to contribute, so I did. Some of the horn lines are Prince's. There was a kind of a convoluted horn line that repeats over and over ad nauseum during the thing. That was mine. So basically, it was like, here, Eddie, here are the notes. Let's go.
Well, I love that horn line, Eric. And in fact, I actually played this video. I'm teaching a Prince course at NYU for the Clive Davis Institute, and we actually looked at this video on Wednesday. And like that horn line, in my personal opinion, is infectious. and I could listen to it all day long. So I want to just thank you for that
Well,
horn line.
thank Chick Corea.
Okay.
No, they're actually,
Do tell.
yeah, no, there actually is a story behind that. That was funny with Prince. The line comes from a little snippet of what I think is Chick Corea playing in a Miles Davis song called Spanish Key, which is from his iconic album Bitches Brew. And I mean, this little doodle of a line happens about maybe 10 minutes into the song. I mean, the thing's like 17 or 18 minutes long. And there were 3 keyboard players on that track: Joe Zawinul, Chick Corea, Larry Young. I think it's Chick Corea, but it could have been Joe Zawinul also. Anyway, that song is one of the more iconic pieces of music for me. I had that little line probably in my head for years and years. And when Prince asked me, do I have anything to throw out, it came out. And I kind of said it in a more repetitive fashion, kind of made a more recognizable riff out of it. Because in the original recording, it was just a spontaneous doodle. And I don't recall that at the time that I was throwing the line out that I even remembered where it came from. It was like late, like, gee, where did that come from? And then it was like, oh yeah, I think it may have come from that. Anyway, so that's what it was. Prince ran into Miles Davis in Kennedy Airport shortly after that video was released, and it was the first time that Prince had ever met Miles. And of course, Prince was a huge fan of Miles. And Prince later said that Miles looked at him and said, "Where'd you get that horn line?" And Prince told me that, and Prince looked at me and said, "Did you steal that horn line from Miles?" And I told Prince, I said, why, and he told me about Miles having said that. And I said to Prince, are you interpreting what Miles said as being an accusation that you had stolen something from him? And that was Prince's, what he thought. And I said, well, there was no reason for him to have actually thought that. Maybe he was just complimenting you and said, man, where did you get that horn line? I find it very, very difficult to believe that Miles Davis would have related any of that to something that he had recorded 15 years before. That happens in all of about 3 seconds in the middle of a 20-minute piece of music. But I decided to play Prince on this because Prince was like getting defensive. And I like to mess with Prince on things like this. And I told him, no, I did not steal that line from Miles Davis. Miles Davis never played that line as far as I knew, which was absolutely true. And I left it at that. That was a bug in Prince's craw for 20 years.
Wow.
Because this was like 1985, 86. Back in later around 2002, 2003, I did just a handful of gigs with Prince, basically subbing for Maceo Parker, who was the primary saxophone player, him and Candy Dulfer at the time. Maceo couldn't make a few gigs, so I subbed for him on a couple of gigs. John Blackwell, the drummer at that time, we were sitting around just chilling. And he says, man, why don't we do America? We can do that. Cool arrangement there, Eric had. Prince looked at me and said, oh, you mean that thing you stole from Miles? This is 20 years later.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like mission accomplished. I had plausible deniability. No, I did not steal that line from Miles Davis. Miles Davis never played that. But Prince never asked me, well, did Chick Corea? Because he wouldn't have known that.
He wouldn't.
So anyway.
Awesome.
That's what America means to me.
Oh, thank you for sharing that amazing story, Eric. All right, so this is the reason why we are here. 40 years later, I can't believe it's been 40 years. So Susannah and Paul, when you see this album cover, what are your first thoughts that come to mind?
Horse.
Baby.
You think of yourself as a baby, and I think of the photographer, Horst.
Wow, he was amazing. And do you remember when we were on that shoot? First, it was an iconic house. Susanna, you probably recall where the house was. I don't.
It was in South Pasadena. It was an
Okay.
extraordinary house in South Pasadena. They have these beautiful, beautiful, like
stairwells and whatever. But what I recall that I still find funny to this day is Prince pulled a Prince and he took the camera out of Horst's hands and started taking photos.
Mm-hmm.
Am I recalling that correctly?
yes,
Yeah, Horst and his assistant.
After those shots were done, he didn't really. Oh wow, it's so interesting. Because the hairstylist at the time, Philip Carrion, even noticed he was so thrilled to be working on this shoot because it was the legendary Horst who, I can't remember the name of that very famous photograph of the woman's torso in the binder.
Right.
And you see her from behind and it's knit up really tight. It's a very famous photograph, but he did, it was a famous, from the 30s up to all the way up into the late 70s, he was doing these extraordinary portraitures, black and white particularly. And to get him to come do this, and he was, I want to say 88 years old, maybe at the time, maybe
Wow.
90. And he came in with all of his people and they set up all the camera and all the, the lighting, the grip, he had his whole thing. And then he sort of came in with his cane and got behind the camera and shot once it was done and how he wanted it. But the slowness and thoughtfulness was interpreted by Prince to be like, does he know what he's doing? And he's not doing it fast enough because I'm seeing something.
That's right.
He just didn't understand why it was taking so long to set the shot up. And he got in there after we had done that portrait, he got in there and moved Horst aside. Mm-hmm. And, like, can I get behind the camera? And we were all like,
It's a good thing Horst had his cane, as he might have fallen over.
You know what? I'm telling you. We were all there, and I just
hit him with it, one or the other.
Oh my goodness! And of course, Philip, who was doing our hair at the time, he was like, everybody started getting weak, like, oh, but it was just, so much of what Prince just had to do everything in the moment. He was so, if he had the idea, it had to be done then and there. Like there was no waiting around. If you don't know what you're doing, I know what I'm doing, and I'm going to get in there and do it. Because he was, in his own mind, a photographer.
Yeah.
So, so whenever I look at that photograph, I always think of Horst, and I think about how lucky we are. I think it was one of maybe two of the last photographs he ever took.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
glad Photomat was open.
So if you can tell on the left, that's Horst's lighting. That's all Horst. On the right, that's Prince's.
Oh yeah, there's a difference.
Is that Princess on the right? Yeah. See, now I didn't know that. You're teaching me something here.
Yes. And you can tell the lighting completely. Horst wouldn't have had the sort of like flat lighting from only on the right. See all the dimensions happening on the left?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That's very classic Hollywood.
Yeah, it is.
Mm.
Wow.
I mean, it was Horst who wanted us in this position or wanted us all together, but it was Prince's lighting. He was just like, let's get you guys all in there. And like, yeah, that's about right. Put Paul on Susannah's lap.
Yay.
Yeah.
So, but these are also Horst too, right, Susannah?
Caption this. We were doing this the other day in a private chat.
Yeah.
Who was saying something like, Stop playing, Eric. You're too loud.
Yeah,
or
it was
something
fine.
like that.
It's a
I thought that was
caption
Eric.
for that. Like,
Yeah, you
yeah,
got him
everyone should
There's
be
Eric.
yelling at Eric. Well, you shut the hell up so we can get some sleep.
Mhm.
So this is from the 7-inch of high fashion, and this is like an alternate shot. I mean, I love all of this photography by Horst, and this is another outtake. Eric and Jellybean, like, what do you remember from this photo shoot?
Bean, go ahead. You
Just
got
it being long, 2-3 days, but that was the norm back then. I went through that
Yeah.
with time. When you just the photo shoots could easily be 2-3 days. I remember being up 48 hours doing the jerk out video, and all over Los Angeles. So
Yeah.
it was just long and tedious and makeup and stuff like that. I'm not really a makeup guy either. So.
That's what I remember.
Oh, yes, you are. Come on.
Yeah. I was like Bean. I'm thinking this is probably the first shoot with the whole 9 yards, hair, makeup, all that.
Yeah.
And I was like,
well, they put the whole meal deal on my face back in those days.
Oh yeah.
I could use a little bit of that right now. I'm a little orange. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, what's happening there, Trump?
I don't know. I think I've got a little warm lighting in my kitchen, and
It's good. Like, nice.
Why, thank you.
So this is also a classic cover, the 12-inch of Screams of Passion.
That's Horst. That is Horst on the
That's
left.
beautiful.
It's stunning.
100%.
No, that's not Horst. That's me.
Oh, that's right. That's you doing it. Oh.
That's me taking the picture. I'm taking the picture. Everybody smile.
So one of the things that I loved is that when you did the and I wanted to ask you, Susannah, so like, is this Horst? Because I couldn't find a photo credit for that. Do you
No.
know who shot this?
Prince.
Prince.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, okay. So
I mean,
I
he
know,
was using Horst's setup
yeah,
that way, but it was not him behind the camera. It was
interesting. So did he also shoot the poster prints?
Boy,
Is that the poster? I don't know.
I have that framed in my house.
Yeah.
That one. No, that's. Oh.
I don't know.
I think it's Prince. I do, because I don't think that we were doing color with Horst, but that's the question.
Yeah. I know that he took the photos in the inner sleeve, except for the 2 black and white ones of Jellybean and Eric, which were Horst. But I remember this in real time because this is actually my original vinyl, and I love that it was a gatefold, and it was just like, oh my god! And I was reading the credits, and I was like, what? Prince took these photos, and I just thought you were stunning, and I really loved all those photographs that he took of you. And this was one that was actually in a lot of magazines at the time.
Yeah.
And it was it's almost reminiscent a little bit of Madhouse and Love Sexy with the polka dots. So it was just really great to see that. So I wanted to really quickly, with F Deluxe, you kind of, Steve Park sort of took a similar direction with the photography.
Yeah.
And can you talk about like who made that decision? Did you collectively say that you wanted to kind of connect it to the first project?
Well, that was the idea for
Yeah,
sure.
Susannah is our in-house consultant on all things graphic art, so I'm going to let her take this one.
Yeah, I really felt that it should have the theme continue on, and it's us, older, and where we would be and who this family is in context of their lives now in relation to the first record. So
the incestuous nature of it was held down. We're still 40 years older, but still living together.
Still living.
None of us have a life.
We can't afford a house.
No marriages, no
times are
children. Just weird.
We're actually squatters in this house.
Yeah. Yeah, it was important, and and I that the guys all know that sort of I'm a stickler for detail. I think I love.
No.
Yeah, and I really felt like I wanted to bring everybody's personality. Like my favorite shots in there are of Eric.
Mm.
They're
Ooh.
just these extraordinary photos of Eric in this setup. You walk up the stairs and he's sitting with his arms out, and it's just so beautiful. It's so what I see of Eric. He's grand and mysterious and gorgeous, and and he commands attention, but he's very quiet. Although, except for when he talks about his stories, then you can't shut him up. And I love you, but
Hello.
so everything is very, very thoughtful. So it's not just sort of like have a photographer come in and just willy nilly take some shots. It's all very thought out because I want everybody to feel as though they're being seen in the context of the family.
Yes, of course. So when it comes to the pajamas, like, who came up with this pajama idea? And then when it was presented to you, what were your first thoughts?
Go ahead, Paul.
Susannah.
Yeah.
Well,
I remember
it was Paul.
Melrose.
I mean, it was Prince, because Prince wore pajamas all the time during this time.
Yeah.
He would walk around in his PJs with an overcoat. And I think that he just felt, at the time we were all working with him and some of us involved a little bit more intimately. And it was just sort of, just his touch. And it just kind of worked that way. He did.
Do you know that I still have my original yellow pajamas and the polka dot robe upstairs?
Oh,
Yeah.
Incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, I have none of it.
And they can be yours if the price is right.
So
That's
speaking
right.
of that robe, I think I have a picture of you in it. Yeah, I do.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, I still got it. I can't fit in the PJs no more. I was about this big when we took those shots. Wasn't that at Prince's house on the back balcony?
Yeah, I think it
Do you
was.
recall that? For some reason, I recall that's where that was taken.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was. I like the idea of the pajamas because that made it easier for me to just get out of bed, do the gig,
And
get
go back
in
to bed.
Yeah. So,
Which
very
actually
efficient.
would come in handy now. Would you like to go back to that, Mr. Leeds?
Absolutely, anytime.
Okay. All right.
Now there was one thing that I thought would have been really cool if Prince had gone for it. If you recall when we did the video for Screams of Passion, and we were doing that in front of a blue screen. That was the video where Prince came up with a wonderful idea that I should be the bass player.
Yes.
Yeah.
I gave you pretty quick bass lessons that day.
Well, you actually, I mean, thank God it was like a repeating line that you taught me where to put my fingers.
Yeah.
So it could, like, from a long shot. But I mean, literally, it's the day before we're supposed to shoot this video, and Prince has given us the idea of what we're going to be doing. And I'm kind of sitting there, and I kind of raised my hand and said, boss, what am I supposed to do? There are no horns in this song. And I don't think Prince had even thought about that yet. And I just remember him sitting there. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, you'll play bass. Okay, fine. Now, the thing was, my pajama outfit was blue. It was supposed to be blue. If you see in all the pictures, it's blue. So we're doing rehearsal in front of the blue screen. And somebody mentions to Prince and says, if Eric is wearing that blue outfit in front of a blue screen, no one will see him.
Yeah, that's right.
Just his head, the bobblehead.
No, it would have been my head and my hands and the bass.
Yeah.
And I told Prince, that's perfect. That would have been freaking great.
Yeah.
Prince didn't go for it. I was very disappointed. Prince didn't know, change. I wore red pajamas or something. So I thought it would have been absolutely hilarious. It would just seem that my head, my hands, and the bass. It would have been great. So anyway.
I have one picture. I have one question about this picture of you, St. Paul. When in real time, when I got this, which was in '85, I was curious why you were this is the inner sleeve, why it was just you and not you and Susannah or the rest of the band, just because you were both on the cover and the band was on the back. And also this picture is taken by Jeff Katz. So I was curious, do you know any, what was the thought behind, putting you in the inner sleeve? I'm just curious.
Prince thought I was the best looking one in the band, so that's where I belonged. Some sort of feature. Not Susannah. Not being definitely not Eric or Jerome. No, Susannah, you had probably way more information than I did. I was more, told where to go, when to do things. You may have more real insight on that.
The only thing I know is that Jeff was coming around more, and I think it was a question of having just Jeff take photographs, and he got a great shot of you, and Prince was like, "Yeah, put it in there." I think it was that simple.
Thank you for that. So there are so many amazing songs on The Family. And when you perform live, is there a particular tune that you just love performing live? I want to start with Jellybean. Is there a song that you love from this album that you just absolutely love playing live? What's your favorite?
Wow. Well, it's two different sides of my brain because, now I play guitar in band. I was then. Probably Screams of Passion. Because once again, it was learning one of them damn drum machine beats that had, my whole career, but starting with the time and then going, continuing on with my family here. And so it was always a challenge for me to learn these, at least get close to these drum machine band, beats. So they were always a challenge to make them at least, sound close to the record. Maybe not quite, but more, more organic and stuff. So yeah, probably Screams for me.
So Jellybean, now that you mention it, if you don't mind, I'm still struggling trying to figure out the drum pattern to 7779311. I know that it's based on this patch from Dave Garibaldi, but in terms of the hi-hats, do you know if Prince programmed them, or was that a part of the original patch on the LM?
That was part of David Garibaldi's brilliance, and me and Morris have told him personally over the years how much, he was a big influence on all three of us, me, him, and Prince. So, when I thought about it in hindsight, because when I listened to some of the Tower Power beats that he put on them, it kind of made sense. Only, we were going more into the 80s and more innovation and stuff. So, yeah, it was hard. A quick story about that. I remember we were about to go on the Controversy tour. It was a Controversy tour. And me and Prince and Morris met down at the Armory at 11 o'clock in the morning, because we were trying to figure out how the hell is Bean going to play this beat in concert and, and make it feel right and have his guys dance and not be a total disaster. So the three of us got down there and we each took a turn, and by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, we figured out how I was going to at least attempt to do it in concert, so.
Mm-hmm. I have a brag. I have to brag one time because Garibaldi's a hero of all of ours.
Yeah.
Last year, I actually got to do a record with David, a single with
Wow.
David, and it's with the Tower of Power horns.
Wow.
It was not for me. I was the sideman of, but I got to play with Garibaldi. It's a big deal to me. That's a big deal.
Yeah. You're playing bass, right, St. Paul?
I was playing bass, yeah.
That's amazing. So since I have you highlighted, when it comes to performing these songs live, which one do you really love performing every time you do it?
Oh, man. The impossible question. Thank you very much. I've had more of a chance, I think, than anybody in here to play these songs throughout the last 40 years. And I mean, Mutiny is the funkiest song in the world. I love that. Screams is difficult to play and sing at the same time and remember that beautiful poetry, but it's just such an incredible groove. I'm picking three. You realize this. And nothing compares to you because because of what that song means to not only us, but to the whole world. So to see people's reaction when Susannah and I sing that and Eric plays that beautiful solo, I mean, it really, it's pretty incredible to think that we were the first to record that. So those are my three. You don't get one.
I'll take it. And what about you, Susannah? Like, well, which one? What are the songs that you really, really love singing from this record?
I think it's gonna have to be "Nothing Compares to You."
Mm.
The others are great because, I mean, I have to be honest, the mutiny is so fun to dance to, and we just get to be sort of wild, and I sort of let myself go on that physically. But where I love to really sing, and I feel as though that Paul and I really come together well, is on "Nothing Compares to You." It's such a heavy song for us, and the way we've been doing it live in our band, what has been with F Deluxe, it just highlights us as players and performers in a really solid way. I love it. So, and Eric's solo on it's just beautiful. I mean, by the end of it, if we've done a really great night, it's a big one for us, for me. So I have to say that one, even more so than Screams of Passion.
And last but definitely not least, what about you, Eric?
I don't have a favorite.
You don't have a favorite? No.
No.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
I'm your favorite.
So let's talk briefly about the one show you did for First Avenue. And the reason why I want you to talk about it is that actually some of my students are watching, and so they don't have like the context behind it. So I'm sure you may be tired of talking about this, but if you don't mind, just talking a little bit about the Soul First Avenue show that you did in August of '85, that would be fantastic.
Somebody give the background on all the rehearsals that we did leading up to this at the warehouse on Washington Avenue. Somebody should give a little preface.
Forever. It seemed months and months. It was at least 6 months, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. It was less than 2 months.
It was only 2?
It felt like 6 years.
Oh, it felt like 6 years. Okay, so a couple of months we were in rehearsal for that first gig. But go ahead, Eric, you know more.
Yeah, Eric, your turn.
My whole experience as a musician was antithetical to what being in this situation was. I was a bar band musician for like close to 15 years before I'd ever heard of Prince. Being a successful bar band musician means you're working and playing 250, 275 nights a year. You don't make any money, but you play night after night after night with the bands that I was playing in. Being in a band meant to me you went to rehearsal in the afternoon, you put two or three new songs together, and you were playing them that night. And that's what being a musician in a band was. This I'm sitting here and said, we're playing these godforsaken songs over and over every day, and we're going to do one gig. What the hell was wrong with this? I mean, basically that was my attitude toward the whole thing. The only other thing that I remember is that the basic set kept getting shorter and shorter. Because every day Prince would come in and he would say, okay, we don't need to do that. That's another minute or so. What started out as something that might have been a 35-minute set, by the time we played First Avenue, I think that set was barely 25 minutes long. So I said, we're the amazing shrinking band. Every time we play, we just play less and less. So, I mean, okay, fine. This is what it is. Cool. It was, in retrospect, it was a very odd experience for me.
Mm.
Yeah.
I got to say, for me, it was I was so young. I mean, Paul and I were babies. I mean, it was my first foray into live performance with a full band, and because I'd only done studio work, and so I remember how petrified I was of hearing myself in a PA for the first time, because it was like my voice was flying all over the place, and I had to go see a vocal therapist about it, like how to project and how to sort of get my voice to work behind a microphone in a live scenario. which actually served me greatly because I was way harder on myself than I should have been. But what was really interesting is that Prince was so supportive of, in my experience, was so supportive of me and getting on stage and how to do it. And he was like, he had some great wisdom about, let it all go and just be up there and lose yourself. Don't worry about what anyone is seeing or hearing. Let yourself completely go. And when we were finished with that night, he gave me a huge hug and he was like, that's how you do it. And I just have always taken that with me, that like, it's such an internal experience on how you are on stage, and what happens between you and your band, that if you're really true to that, that comes across into, with the audience that's there to support you and have a really good time. And for you to have a good time with them is to allow yourself to really let go. And I have always taken that. Always.
That's beautiful. I have a similar outlook on this. You got to understand where I came from. I came from a bebop family, the youngest, so I was already gigging all throughout high school when I got thrown into more Stay in the Time or the Time. I'm this suburban kid getting thrown right in the middle of an R&B band, and Jellybean can attest to this. It took a little molding, shall we say, to kind of get me to where they needed me to be. Right, big bro?
Yep.
And
struggle's real.
The struggle was real. And then to be thrown into the co-lead singing spot on the family record and performance, that was yet another opportunity to learn. And I was a sponge back in those days. I wanted to learn from Prince. I wanted to learn from Jerome on the steps and all the different things, because, obviously Prince was super successful. And here's this guy who's mentoring me to show me how to put together a show, show me the personality that you can have during this, and maybe ultimately give me the confidence and the pat on the back that I needed so I could pull this off. Because a lot of it is, yeah, you're doing great. I mean, trust me, there were times in rehearsal where it was like, what are you doing? And I, quite frankly, probably didn't know what I was doing. So to get to the point of the show, we were obviously in a good enough place where he was confident to put us on stage and give us enough rope, to see what would happen. And just like Susannah, at the end of the show, he grabbed me and hugged me and said, "That was unbelievable," or something to that effect, which was like the ultimate compliment that I take to that with me everywhere I go as well. It's these building blocks in a career and in your self-confidence and in your life that mold you. And that was a very, very, very important night for me.
And what about you, Jellybean? Like in terms of the show or rehearsals?
Can I just say something really quick about Jellybean?
Yeah.
I remember so well because I was right next to Jellybean for most of our rehearsals, and he always had a fan on him. He was always running. I mean, I swear to God, you on drums, I think you must be running a temperature of 200 degrees.
Yeah.
He would get so hot. I mean, even with the fan, what would come blowing up at you, I'd always look over like, how are you doing this? So he always has. Do you still have the fan? I can't remember when you play.
No, every once in a while in concert I have a fan on me, but I'm just used to it now. I'm just conditioned after all these years of doing that.
So and even on stage, that was also one of the things. We'd have fans blowing, so everything was like all of the and like
and the robe going crazy. Oh, yeah,
everything, and we were just like all in it. And I was like, all thanks to Jellybean.
Yeah, that's part of the shit, man. It is, yeah. And it's funny too. because the time, I was conditioned to do these rehearsals in the first place, because when we did the time initially, rehearsals was 6-7 hours a day.
Yeah.
You rehearse and then you
Yep.
lunch and then you talk shit to each other and then you come back and you start it all over again. And you could easily run your set, like Eric said, it'd be a good 40-45 minute set, but you run it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah,
So,
you're gonna sweat.
yeah, so you're gonna sweat. That
Yeah.
was just part of it. So, but
Well,
no,
I'm sorry I interrupted you, Bean. You want to tell about what your experience was on that show?
it's great. I was just trying to make sure that for me, I'm the engine, so I always try to I'm always self-conscious about tempos and trying to keep the beat because people are dancing and playing parts and all that stuff. So I want to kind of keep it close to best, at least as much as we've been rehearsing. I try to keep it the same if I can. And if I'm having a bad day, or I'm sick or something like that, or I'm rushing, or I'm too slow, I'm dragging, which I've been guilty of over the years,
We all have.
But that was my most important thing, is just and I could tell from that. That's the one thing when you're the drummer and you're in the middle of the band, you can see if you're hitting your guys right, because the way they're performing, where crowd is reacting.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you can see, if people are into them, and people, like the famous thing Moore says in Purple Rain, he wants to see asses wiggling. That's been my whole thing, my whole life. When it comes to this stuff, I like to see asses wiggling. So
That's a new shirt for the family, right there. New merch.
So I
you got one job. You want asses wiggling. That's it. I got one job.
So I have 2 more questions about the family. Then I want to transition to F Deluxe, and then also talk about what you're doing now, because you're actually going back on tour, which I'm super, super excited about. And you're also hopefully will be at Celebration, which is amazing announcement. So my question for the family, for Susannah and St. Paul, do you remember recording your vocals? And I remember reading St. Paul that David Z was working with you in terms of recording your vocals. Is that correct? Or am I wrong?
It's correct. And you know who else was there every single night? Big Bro on this side. Jellybean was there every single night. And I'd be flat. We were sitting in this warehouse. It was not a recording studio. I'm
No, it
telling you,
wasn't.
it was
No,
a
it wasn't.
warehouse.
Yeah.
I think that
Flying
I was
cloud.
probably
Yeah.
Black
Yeah,
Light,
it was
yeah.
pretty tough.
Flying Cloud, Eden Prairie. Yep.
Yep.
20 feet ahead of them with a microphone.
Yeah.
And they were sitting 20 feet back with the huge board.
Yeah.
And we still were, communicating over what they call a talkback, so I could hear them in my headphones. And I remember very distinctly you being there every day. And I think you were learning from David Z as well, because
Yes, I
David
was.
would say, "You're a
Yeah.
little flat, Paulie," and you go, "Yeah, you're flat, Paulie." "Hey, you're a little sharp, Paulie." "Oh, you're a little sharp, Paulie." It was great. It was like I was getting
Paul,
doubled in.
artists I've told that over the years and my production stuff, man, they don't want to be one to hear it. Trust me.
Yeah, I know. And there was a lot of correction going on. I remember going into my first vocal recording, because I didn't have as much session work behind me as Susannah did. So I thought I'd go in there, sing it once, and I'd be out for dinner.
Nope.
About 15 minutes later. No.
Just young.
They beat on me. I mean, and you got to understand something. I think David Z's direction from Prince was to have me get as close to the inflection, emotion, tone that I could, because he really wanted it a particular way.
Yeah.
And look, it was great. Why not? So I really, once I got past that first vocal session, I went, oh, okay, I get it now. So I relearned how to learn before I went to the studio, and things went a little bit more smoothly after that. Granted, David really did a hell of a job getting those vocals out of me.
Yeah.
And Prince came very rarely. I'm trying to think. I think I remember one instance, only one or two that he would come and
Yeah.
I got done with an end of a vocal run that kind of surprised him. And again, he got up, hugged me. He's like, damn. So, I mean, those kind of things are fun to remember.
Yeah.
And what about you, Susannah? Like, what do you remember about recording your vocals for this project?
I'll be back.
Okay.
It's so much because there was a lot going on. I was doing other sessions for Prince at the time, and I was just working on. Here's something, just a little background. This record was going to be mostly Paul singing the leads, and so the second record, if we were to have one, was going to be Susannah singing mostly the leads. So I went into this as sort of like, I'm just singing background on this record, right? Except for in Nothing Compares to You. So my job was easy. And because I was already used to singing in a studio and behind the microphone, it was quick. I did go, it was back and forth from Los Angeles to Minneapolis. I'd go in with David, I'd do my parts, and that was it. Except for when we did this one song called Misunderstood that was going to be on the record. And Prince had a lot to say about how he wanted it to sound. And he'd given me direction that he wanted me to do a vocal that sounded like Elvis meets Marilyn Monroe.
Okay.
Really sort of like overly characterized the vocal. And I was like, oh my God. For the first solo vocal on the record, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But I did it. And I ended up recoiling and feeling I was just like, this is not me. This is not me. We can't put this on the record. We just can't put this on the record. And I went to Prince and we had this long conversation. He came to Sunset Sound and met me there. And we took a nice long walk into the courtyard, sat down at the picnic tables. And I just said, I'm sorry, please. I just can't put this on the record. And he was like, okay. I was like, it's just, it's not me. I don't know how to be this person. And if I were to do the second record, everyone's going to expect me to sound like that. And I don't know if I could live up to that. That's Susannah's thing. And I was like, it's just not my thing. I can't do that. I just want to sing. He understood that. I think he was sort of like just playing. In any case, that didn't go on the record, although it's out there in the ether. Like, God, I can't believe anybody even listens to it, but they do, and that's what that's about. So just so I can say it, like, the record was, it was supposed to be a continuum. So I always came into it as like, I'm just doing my parts for now, and we're going to be doing more, and it's all going to happen, and we're doing all this great stuff, and and when Nothing Compares to You came, and we were like, this was like, for me, I remember that day in the studio with David, and I was like, oh, I finally get to really get some singing in here. And I loved it. And it was really fun. I mean, the whole record was really fun because, the string arrangements were done by Claire Fisher. And that was because Prince and I had been listening to so much of Rufus. And Rufusized was, all the string arrangements were done by Claire. And we had talked about doing strings on this record, on the family record. And I said, hey, my dad knows Claire really well because my dad was a composer, jazz pianist, and had, one of the Wrecking Crew back in the day, and was very, on great terms with Claire. And he made a phone call to Claire. And that's how that started. So I always felt like, yay, young kid, like pulling strings and making stuff happen. And this record's going to be so great. And we got to be in this session, and we did it somewhere out in Pasadena, I think, the studio where we all went, and we had this, it was a small string section, but it was large enough. And it was a glorious day. I was like, I just felt like the project itself was so important. and we were all important in the scheme of things to what was happening with Prince musically. And we just sort of like, when it just felt really important and right. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know if important is really the word, but um, so vocals were just a part of all of the bigger part of that whole record. If that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. Go ahead, Paul. Was that you?
Yeah. Thank you for bringing Claire Fisher into that, Susannah. That changed the whole record for me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, not thank you. I mean, I thought you meant like thank you now for just talking about it. But yes, thank my dad. Thank, Mr. Melvoin.
I loved your dad so much, by the way. You know I did, and we got along so great. He was such a good guy. I loved him.
Yeah. My dad, famous for calling everybody man. Hey, man. Hey, man.
I speak that. He was great.
Yeah.
So I have one last question about the family, and Eric, you may not want to answer this, and it's totally fine. I respect whatever you want to do. I know that you co-wrote both Susannah's Pajamas and Yes, which were the instrumentals on the family. Can you talk about how those came about? And I personally think of them as sort of Madhouse Zero. Like, do you think that sort of put that idea in Prince's head, these two songs off of this project?
I have no idea. When I was doing the recording sessions for the family, I had no expectations as to what my involvement was really going to be beyond that. It was kind of odd to me that Prince would make a decision of me being as a central part of this group before he'd even met me. Apparently, I don't know how that works. When we did the first recording sessions, I was just doing a recording session with no expectations. And once I left the session, that I would necessarily have anything more involvement with Prince or this project or what it was. I was there to do a session, try to do what the artist or the producer wanted me to do. If I was successful in doing that, he was going to give me a paycheck, and I was going to go and say, thank you very much. Good luck. So my involvement with Prince was actually incremental. As time went on, it's like when I did the original recording sessions for, I think the first recording session was for High Fashion Mutiny, Desire, and Susannah's Pajamas, and it was all of 2.5 hours, to do that. It was just pretty much in and out. So I had no real. I enjoyed working with him. I enjoyed the music. It was a fun session to do. That was the sole total of my experience with Prince. I had very little knowledge or interest in Prince or his music before I met him. I did those recordings, and then I think a week or two later, I was in Minneapolis hanging with my brother who worked for Prince. I mean, that's the only reason I was involved, because of that connection. And I was just spending time in the summertime just hanging here for a while. And Prince, I think, asked Alan if I was still around. He said, yeah, I've got something else for him to do. So I came in, we did Nothing Compares to You. Anyway, to answer your question, the instrumentals basically were just, there was nothing about them that stood out to me as anything other than what the kind of music that I had been playing for 15 years. It's like, Susannah's Pajamas was a very kind of a Herbie Hancockish kind of, kind of a Headhunters light, or something like that. So it was cool, What was interesting about it, I guess, is that there was no melody to it. Prince did not have us here's the head, here's the melody. He just said, here's the track, just start playing. I said, all right. So basically it's one extemporaneous solo from the beginning to the end. And that's all it is to me. So it's just it's cool. But there's nothing about it that sits into me oh my God, this is something. No, it's just it's just a very typical kind of, like I said, contemporary funk fusiony kind of track that, to be absolutely honest with, 50 people could have come up with that. And to me, it would have been little or no different than what it was.
Yes.
And I basically, because, like, I'd been playing music like that for much of my career. It's the kind of stuff that me and my guys would come up with. There was nothing particularly distinctive about it to me in that regard. It was cool, track was nice. And I basically felt the same thing about Yes. It's just like, all right, it's just coin of the realm. It's that's what musicians do. There was nothing about it that, I had more of an opportunity on Yes to create a melody and an arrangement. What I didn't like about what went on the album is I didn't understand the process of the editing on it. The song was originally like 7.5, 8 minutes long. So obviously, in order for something like that to go on an album, it was going to require some hard editing, to make it something, because it was pretty extemporaneous. I didn't like what Prince did with the song on the album. It didn't make any sense to me, to be absolutely honest. No, now for people that have no idea what the original track was like, for those who only have that to listen to, they said, well, I like it what it is. So cool, but knowing what it was like, I thought, and there were some harmony parts and some other textures in that didn't make any sense to me, to be absolutely honest. So for that regard, doesn't mean much to me. No.
Well, it means a lot to me as a listener, especially in real time. Like when I got that record, because I was 15 years old, and I love instrumentals. To this day, I love just the instrumental genre, and to have two instrumentals on like R&B/funk record is really rare. And to me,
by that time it was.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. By that time. So I was like, this is phenomenal, to have these like really two instruments. And also for me, that was my introduction to your playing on vinyl. And I thought your playing was extraordinary. And so the collaboration of you and Claire Fisher, like those string arrangements and the horn arrangements are so lush and really.
Well, you got to understand, when I did all my horn parts, Claire Fisher had not done anything yet. So the only thing that I had to play on was just the basic tracks.
Oh, wow.
Now, to be absolutely honest with you, as far as anything that I ever recorded as a solo on any Prince song, probably the one that I like the most is High Fashion, for two reasons. First of all, it's a long solo.
LP, long playing.
Yeah, exactly. But in that regard, it actually gave me an opportunity to build something rather than just to have, because a lot of it is basically, okay, you got 8 bars, you got 16 bars. So you got to just throw something against the wall and see if it sticks, Whereas in High Fashion, basically Prince said, okay, you got a ways to go on this. So it's like, and Prince, something that was kind of production 101, but it made sense. He said, Prince specifically said, I don't remember articulated this way, but basically it's like 6 8-bar phrases that just go on and on like that. And Prince said, for the first, when you hit the solo, just keep it very simple based on 3 or 4 notes of the chord. And I said, cool, yeah, that makes sense. And said, I will then give you a nod. And when I give you a nod, then just fly, So, and in that regard, it was, like I said, it gave me more space to actually do something that for just as a saxophone player, somebody that I said, okay, now I got a chance to actually build something that has kind of a statement in and of itself. Now I have no idea at that time what he was going to do with editing it. And I was very happy that he did not edit that. He just basically let the whole thing go. But all the strings that you hear behind the solo, I didn't hear those because they hadn't been done yet. So so now I'm not going to presume, I'm not going to be quite so arrogant to presume that Claire Fisher was necessarily writing those strings based on what I was playing. I don't know if he did or didn't, to whatever extent that it certainly works. But I'm relating to just what the rhythm section was. And to be absolutely candid and honest, I did not like the mixes of High Fashion and Mutiny on the album because he took off the bass. He was in his bass, he was in, let's take the bass off it. It worked for Screams for When Doves Cry.
Yeah.
I'm playing, and Prince's bass playing on that was terrific. And you know that because if you hear us do the songs live, that's how I think they should be done. Because Paul's playing the hell out of the bass on that, So that's what I had to play off. I'm just playing with the straight up funk rhythm section, which was something that was in my wheelhouse, So that's what I'm relating to. And then I hear when the album comes out and I'm listening to it and I said, what the hell is the bass? The hell? How am I supposed, literally, I'm saying, I can't dance to this. You're being talked about keeping the asses wiggled to, dude. I'm sorry. These songs are great, but you don't, where the hell's the bass?
Mm-hmm.
So, when, with all due regard, if I ever want to listen to the recording of those songs, I listen to the original rough track, basically because it's got the bass, and I can relate to that. So, that now, once again, it's not for me to suggest that anyone is supposed to listen to the music with any other ears than your own, But if you're going to ask me my opinion about something, I'm going to give it to you. I'm sorry. If you give me High Fashion and Mutiny, you better give me some bass. So anyway.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you in Europe and at
I know you will.
Celebration.
I know you will. Yep.
So St. Paul, I want to transition to the talking about F Deluxe, but actually I'm kind of doing a twofer. So when you were recording the F Deluxe album, you had these sessions where because I can't remember, it was Reverb Nation. I can't remember what platform you were actually doing it through. And one of those sessions, you actually played the extended version of High Fashion. I don't know if you remember that. And I was curious, were there any other extended versions of any other songs that we don't know about in terms of the family? I'm just curious.
That's really a question for Eric. Eric, you would know because you're the great archivist.
What you're talking about? Other things that were recorded for the family that was never released?
No, that were extended
versions that got
short.
Oh,
yeah. No, the only one was High Fashion.
Okay.
That I know of. Yeah, I don't. Was there anything done with Screams of Passion? I don't. No, because no.
Well, I mean, they made a 12-inch out of it, but we're not talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
We're talking about just extended versions that got.
Or none.
No, I don't think so. All of the songs that I played on, those are the tracks. Like I said, yet for example, Yes was 8.5 minutes long, got edited, but that was it.
Okay.
High Fashion Mutiny, Nothing Compares to You, Desire. Desire was that I think is a little the original track of Desire may have been longer than what went on the album. But that was just because I think there was a long extended vamp, because I think I may have originally played longer on that and then Prince just truncated the end of that, which made sense because that's a song in itself. There's no reason to really have an extended vamp on a song like Desire. So, yeah.
Right. So, St. Paul, can you talk, or Susannah, can you talk, who initiated wanting to get the family back together? And I actually came to the two shows you did as F Deluxe and at Joe's Pub in New York.
Oh, yeah.
I was thrilled.
It was snowing that day.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I came from Philly. I was living in Philly at the time.
Oh my God, you can.
And I was like, I have to see. I've been waiting all my life to see you guys live. And I was just so thrilled. And it was such an incredible two shows. So talk to us, how did you decide to come back together? and, record the Gaslight album and want to tour again? Like, who initiated that, and how did it sort of get started?
Well, I think
I'm going to let you answer that, Susannah, but let me just give credit to somebody for booking shows for F Deluxe. And he was the guy who would always champion us. And it's a guy by the name of Neil Richards.
Mhm.
Neil Richards was our manager for years. A dear friend. I met him many years previous to F Deluxe getting back together, or the family getting back together, when I played in Australia with David Sanborn and my brother. He was a journalist who really dug the family record, and we became friends with Leo Timpano and a lot of people from over there. But he was instrumental in championing us, especially when the record was done, to be able to play various places, including Europe. And anyways, Suzanne, I'll let you answer the other part of it, but I had to make sure that we credited him on that.
Yeah, he was the one who put us out. But the inception of it was, we were asked in 2004 to play the family jam here at the Forum with Sheila E, and it was a bunch of us who worked with Prince, the Revolution, up into Jill Jones, us. And when we were finished with that one gig, Paul and I just looked at each other and we were like, should we just keep doing it? I mean, it was really like that. Like, yeah, we sort of fell right into it so naturally that we were like, yeah, let's do this. And I want to say within that next year, Paul was out in Los Angeles and we were in my garage. And we set up a little Pro Tools rig and a MIDI keyboard, and we wrote the record. And
let's make something straight here. I lived in your garage making that record.
Okay.
It was actually a few years after that.
Was it
after the Questlove? It was the Questlove gig.
It was the Questlove gig.
Questlove.
You were pregnant. You got pregnant, and we couldn't follow through on that after
That's
that.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
So I was pregnant. I was 3 months pregnant with my second baby. And so I had her, and then it was, I want to say within a year of that, or a year after that, that Quest asked us if we wanted to play his after party.
Yeah, that was 2006.
Right. So the big,
Yeah, 6 or 7, somewhere around there.
Yeah, a couple of years old. So yeah, that's what it was. We just. Yeah.
There was another specific reason why we did it, though. We were talking about, after the Questlove gig, we were basically said, okay, is there a market out there for us to go out as the family, even if it's just a run of gigs here and there a few times a year, just to do some gigs, put some money in our pocket. At the time, we asked my brother Alan to put out some feelers and see if he could get any feedback. Because at the time, Alan was managing D'Angelo. He had been on the road for years before that with Raphael Sadiq, with Maxwell. So Alan at the time was pretty hooked up with promoters, venue operators, agents. He put out some feelers, and he came back and he said, guys, got bad news for you. Nobody under the age of 30 knows who you are. And he said, if I remind them, he said, oh, okay, yeah, they had that one record back in 1985. They basically said, anyone, promoters, agents, whatever, said, what do they have that's new? And it was like, if you want to have any viability today, you better have some new product, because as an oldies band that it was, let's face it, the quintessential one-hit wonder. I can't do anything with that. The only people that know who the family are the diehard Prince fans. And they said, that's not enough that I'm going to, go out of my way to do anything with. So give me something new. And that's when we actually sat down and said, what are we going to do? And that at that point, I think it was like Paul and Susannah said, well, let's make some music.
And we did. And there were some growing pains with that, because we had never attempted writing with each other. And that's just the way it goes when you have a new writing partner, no matter who it would be. I mean, I've loved these people since the minute we were in this band, but we never look. Susannah was an accomplished writer by herself. I had 2 solo records out. Bean was an accomplished writer. Eric,
I had no real. I to be absolutely honest, Susannah, I had no idea of what you did because I had not seen you other than those 2 gigs. We had no real ongoing relationship or anything professionally or otherwise. I was, I had done several bar band gigs with Paul over the years, and certainly was knowledgeable about his albums of his own. But I had no real basic understanding or expectation or presumption about what you guys would actually come up with. And I think Paul remembers, I told you, he said, if all you guys that come up with stuff reminds me of the Family album, I'm not interested. You better come with something that, I want to hear what you guys said. And from Jump Street, when you started, bringing me songs like At 8 and Beautiful You and Over the Canyon and stuff like that, I'm saying, okay, here are 2 writers that are writing some really, really hip shit, and this is about 2 people who are adults and have had a life and have things to write about.
Right.
And with the particular harmonic vocabulary that Paul has, particularly, was like writing some shit. And I said, this is not Prince shit. This to me is so much hipper. I'm sorry.
Say that again.
Family album was cool for what it was, but I'm like, and said, I have no interest in redoing that. Been there, done that. I want to hear what you guys came with. And you guys will come up with stuff, and Wendy and Lisa and their song The Vigil, and that stuff. And I'm saying, okay, this, and then they come, and then Paul comes with some instrumental jams and stuff. I said, this is really in my wheelhouse and gives me a lot to hang my hat on. So it's like my involvement with F Deluxe, we play the family stuff, and that's cool because it's great music, and I understand why the people want to hear that, and that's fine. I am in this because of F Deluxe. I'm looking forward. My whole purpose in music is, what are you going to give me today that I didn't do yesterday? And once we get to tomorrow, what we did today, better come with some new shit. So anyway.
And I remember being, okay, so I was at that point in my life on tour with Kenny Loggins. And in between runs, I'd fly out, and I had my bedroom and my fridge and my studio. We had a really cool setup in Susannah and her husband at the time's place. And it was comfortable. We all got along great. And we experimented and had to learn how to weave into each other's creativity vibe without stifling one or discouraging. And it was a very cool evolution of what we used to be, and it turned into what we are today, and we'll be continuing that from here on out.
Look, guys, back in 85, you were musical stem cells. You understand? You hadn't become anything specific yet.
Right.
Prince is looking at. No, exactly. Prince is looking at you for the potential that you possibly could be. But understand, if the family had been continued, it was still a Prince band, and that's all it was ever going to be, which is fine.
Right.
But you have to accept that premise. But now we're going to say this is Paul and Susannah coming with music, and to whatever extent that I can add something of value, it is completely dependent on what you guys are doing, because I have to relate to that. And if it doesn't give me anything that I can do, I look at just the little details and little things that are of value to me from my own standpoint, what resonates with me on the F Deluxe album, and it means a lot more. Because first of all, the music just gave me so much more to just do interesting things with. So, no.
So, Jellybean, can I ask you a question? So, when I saw that F Deluxe show at Joe's Pub, I was surprised to see you playing guitar because I was so used to seeing you on the drums. When did you sort of transition to playing guitar live? And did you how did that come about in terms of playing guitar for the family?
Well,
I'm sorry, for F Deluxe. My apologies.
Well, it had always been the world's greatest secret kept secret that, you know, I played guitar. I went through earlier in my career. I had played a solo with Jimmy and Terry on one of their productions, Alexander O'Neill, called "Innocent,"
Mm,
and people thought it was Jesse Johnson,
mm.
and so, you know, I went through that, and it's a little quick story about that too. I remember Prince introducing me to Miles, and Miles saying to me that, "Hey, I like that solo you did on Innocent, you know, for Alexander O'Neill." And you got to realize, me, you know, just being a snotty nosed kid from the north side of Minneapolis, I'm like, what? You know, because
Mhm.
first of all, nobody knew Jellybean Johnson even played the guitar, you know, until then. That was my introduction to the world. And then I played guitar, and Paul attested this because I've been in 10 zillion bands with him around here in town, and I jam with everybody around here. I play guitar at home and stuff because I'm a left handed drummer. And, you know, I get asked all the time around here to play for people, but, you know, I'm left-handed, so I'm not going to be tearing down turning guys' drum sets around, this and that, and all that kind of crap. So, and I just grew up with an official love for the guitar, you know, in my teen years and stuff, probably because of Hendrix.
Mm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to be respectful of time, and we only have 9 minutes left. And I just want to ask one quick question about LP music, which I absolutely adore that project. I was able to see you live at the Ice House in Minneapolis. It's one of my favorite gigs I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, thank you.
So
Appreciate
I,
that.
I really want to know, will there be a second LP music record? Because I think we would love to have one.
Paul actually works for a living, so it's like
That gets in the way, man. It does.
I have to deal with that limitation.
Uh,
Um, we are constantly throwing ideas around. We actually have probably 5 or 6 pieces of music from the original sessions that didn't go on
Oh,
the first
wow.
album. So it's just a matter of finishing those up and playing around with some things. Of course, you know, by now I may listen to them. And I said, "Oh, that's yesterday's news." So yeah, you know, but we have stuff. So yes, yeah, it is an ongoing thing. Now with the way things are done now, it's a lot easier for us. So we could actually, you know, if I could get Paul for a weekend, we could put something together and put it up on, you know, you know, put it up just as a single, release it. So we don't even have to necessarily do a full album to, you know, keep new music coming out. But yeah, that is an ongoing. Um, I really, I'm not going to say just because he's orange in the face, but of all of the people that I have had the opportunity to make the kind of music that I make, you know, from the standpoint of what my own personal aspirations are. I have done much of that work alone, you know, as far as like my own projects. Working with Paul on that project, and I started to realize the dimensions of Paul as a musician when we were doing the Deluxe album, and when we started to have the idea of doing instrumental music, and Paul working on that album, the LP music, was probably one of the most enjoyable musical experiences I've ever had, because what Paul did was what is really the most significant thing for me is to be in a situation where I can be surprised by what I do, you know, because for people who enjoy my playing or whatever, thank you very much. But you have to understand something. I'm the only person that has to hear me all the time. And it gets really, really old, you know? And when I get in a situation when even just something that, because it's a conversation, you know, and whatever my ideas are, when the other person I'm having a conversation with reacts differently than what I may expect, then it forces me to then respond to that differently from what I might if I'm talking to somebody else or I'm just thinking about it my own. And I'm still going to listen for the LP music. And I said, you know, the things on that I don't recognize as me. I mean, it's my sound or whatever, but I wouldn't have done that without the relationship and the dialogue I had with Paul, because Paul's basically telling me things that are different and force me to respond to that. That for me is the most wonderful musical circumstance that you can have. And Paul, you're the man. No, really.
That was. Can you imagine being able to sit in front of Eric Leeds' saxophone for 6 months every day, listening to him? It was terrible. No,
it was horrible. But god awful.
It was great. I just kept looking over my shoulder because he'd record right behind me, and I'm on the board doing whatever I do. And I just went, I'm a lucky guy that I could.
Yeah, but Paul is like, he turns around and can give me that look and doesn't have to say anything. Basically the look and said, Leeds, I've heard you do that 500 times. Come on, man, do something that
Or his favorite. You're a little sharp, Eric. Can you push in your?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
These two.
And Bean were there. He said, "Yeah, you're sharp."
That is the truth.
Yeah.
All right. So talk to us about this upcoming gig in Utrecht on April 21st. It's actually sold out, I think, right?
That one is sold out, and I think the other ones are very, very close. I'll give you a little background on it. Candy, I have something called Funk Friday, and I've been doing this for 5 years continuously, playing with some of my favorite people in the world, a 1-minute funk jam every week. Fast forward to, involving Candy and Eric and Questlove on one particular thing. I got to conversations with Candy. I didn't know Candy. Candy was a different generation of the Prince camp than me. But we had started a dialogue. And last year she came and asked me to be a special guest along with Shelby J and Eda Nelson in Europe. And I said, hell yeah, I want to come over and hang with you. We had a ball. Candy is the salt of the earth and a great player. We love her.
Yeah.
And then, after we were done with the gig, I approached her about the 40th anniversary of the family. By the way, if you hear it sounds like a truck going up, they're cleaning my lawn outside, and I have nowhere else to go, so you're going to have to suffer a little bit.
It's okay. No, not at all.
So I asked Candy, do you want to be the one that relaunches the family? And she's like, oh, yeah, I do. So Candy came to us, and we are excited to go over and play her Purple Jam. It's going to be great. We got some work to do. They're all coming over to my house, the rehearsal house here at Mama Jean's place, the Peterson family basement. That has housed so many rehearsals in past years, and I'm looking forward to all of that and then traveling over there and getting this ball rolling.
And in addition to being over in Europe, you're also going to be at Celebration. It was just announced, and I know a lot of people are super excited about your appearance at Celebration. And this is the second time that you will be there, what I call post-Prince, because I was there the first time when you performed there. And so I know a lot of people are very, very excited. So we only have 2 more minutes left, and I'm really big on respecting people's time because time is our most precious commodity. And I really appreciate that you took time out to actually be with us. It means a big deal. Jerome tried to get here, but unfortunately he couldn't work out his schedule. So for all of you to be here with us to kick off our 3 days of celebrating the family, Romance 1600 around the Rolling Day, it means the world to me. And I know a lot of people who are in the chat. So I just want to thank you so very much.
You're so welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, darling.
D'Angelo, can I just say one thing before sending off?
Sure.
I don't want people to get the impression of when I talk about the different things about, I got to say something about what the celebration of Prince means to me, because aside from having the opportunity to have been involved with working with a remarkable and at times brilliant musician with Prince, the people that I have these close relationships with is because of that, as much as anything else. To be able to have this relationship with Susannah and Paul, Jellybean, Jerome. I played with an absolute fabulous band with Sheila E for several years in the mid-90s, which was one of the wonderful experiences I had. But, Prince gave me the opportunity to make my own music when I was involved with him, when he signed me to his recording company, Paisley Park, and particularly with my 2 albums, Times Square and Things Left Unsaid. Prince had my back like few other people that you could imagine in a situation like that. And I think Prince understood how grateful and thankful I was for him to have given me the opportunity, to have made my own music then. And so much of the opportunity that I had to do that I carried forward to be able to then take advantage of the kind of relationships and understand. You know why I understand why Paul and Susannah and Bean are such tremendous musicians? Because Prince understood that. And I mean, not that I wouldn't have realized that regardless, but the quality of the people that Prince had with him was essential to that. But that's what is essential to me, and it's all part of the thing. So it's like, thank you, Prince, for everything that grew out of that. And like you say, the fact that there's anybody that's interested in hearing me run my mouth is only because they know me because I came out of Prince and all that. So, thank you. I don't want people to lose sight of that. I get it. Nobody understands how remarkable a musician Prince was than somebody like, Paul and everybody, for those of us working with. I had the opportunity to be in the session with him close to 150, 175 sessions. You don't come out of that with not knowing what that meant. And for him to have seen something in me that gave him reason to want to sign me to his record company and basically give me a huge recording budget and saying, Eric, get the hell out of here and go make some music. I don't want to know what you're doing until you give me a finished album. And, I can't put into words how thankful and grateful I will be to him always for that. And learning experiences gives me the opportunity to get in a situation with Paul and Susannah and realize I need to step up with them, So anyway, that's all I got to say about that.
All right. And so is there, St. Paul, is there a preferred social media destination that people should go to in terms of everything that the family is currently doing and will be doing in the future?
I'm muted. Okay. The website is currently fdeluxe.com. That's the one that people know how to get to.
Okay.
And you can find our social media on there as well. We have Instagram, and someone stole our F Deluxe with 20,000 viewers. Somebody infiltrated that, so we're starting from ground zero again. I think that's called The Family, so look out for that. Yeah, there's the. It should be on there somewhere, and if it's not, our people will make sure that it's up there very soon. Our people are me. So.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. What is that? A new T-shirt? Oh, look at that. It sure is.
There you go.
How beautiful that is. I wonder who designed that. Oh, yeah, Steve Park and Susannah Melvoin designed that shirt. It's a pre-order only, U.S. only. We'll start shipping in May. But if you want to get your hands on the brand new F Deluxe T-shirt, go to fdeluxe.com and it's in the store.
Awesome. So thank you so much again. We really, really appreciate you taking time out of your day, waking up really early in some cases.
I was up at 6 this
rock and roll,
morning.
honey. I'm a late bird.
Yes. Thank you, Jellybean, so much for being here. Really do appreciate it.
My pleasure, darling.
Eric, it's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you about music, and it was a pleasure to meet you all. So thank you so much.
Hon. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Bye, hon.
Have a good one.